The room didn't just fall quiet when the paper ripped, it felt like the air itself had been cut in half. The sharp, dry sound of tearing echoed off the marble floor and glass walls, loud enough to make a few heads turn. A toddler near the waiting chairs stopped fussing. A teller froze with her fingers hovering above a keyboard. And at the counter, a little girl tightened her grip on her father's jacket as two uneven halves of a check slid back across the polished surface toward them. Ethan Carter didn't move right away. For a brief second, he wondered if this was actually happening or if exhaustion was finally playing tricks on his mind. He had been awake since before dawn, answering emails while packing Lily's lunch, double-checking homework, making sure her hair was tied just right. Life had trained him to stay calm under pressure, to absorb small humiliations without reacting, because reacting usually made things worse. Still, something about seeing $10 million torn apart so casually made his chest feel hollow. Lily looked up at him, her small fingers curled into the fabric of his jacket. "Daddy?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. She didn't understand money, checks, or banks. She only understood tone, and the woman behind the counter had spoken with the same voice teachers used when scolding children. Ethan met Lily's eyes and gave her a reassuring smile, though it took effort. "It's okay," he said softly. "Just stay right here." The bank manager leaned back slightly in her chair, arms folding across her chest as if she had just completed an unpleasant but necessary task. She was in her late 30s, impeccably dressed, her hair pulled back in a sharp, efficient style. Her nameplate caught the light, polished and proud. To her, this wasn't personal. It was routine. Every week, people walked in with fake checks, wild stories, and hopeful looks. She believed she could spot them instantly, and she trusted that belief more than any system or protocol. "I don't have time for games," she said, her voice clipped and professional, with a faint edge of irritation. "You can't just walk into a private bank with a check like that. If you're desperate, there are other institutions better suited for you." The words stung more than the torn paper. Ethan had heard variations of them before, in different offices, different cities, from people who looked at his clothes before listening to his words. He wasn't offended by skepticism. What unsettled him was how quickly she had decided who he was. Not a client. Not a possibility. Just a problem to be dismissed. He glanced down at the pieces of the check. Even torn, it still bore the watermark, the embossed seal, the signatures that had taken months of negotiations to earn. That check represented years of quiet work, of taking risks no one else wanted, of believing in things before they became fashionable. He hadn't even wanted to come to the bank personally. His assistant had insisted it would be faster, simpler. "Just one visit," she had said. "In and out." Ethan inhaled slowly. "Ma'am," he said, keeping his voice level, "that check is legitimate. If you could please verify it in your system or contact the issuing firm." She raised a hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. "Sir, I've been doing this job for over 15 years. I know what a legitimate transaction looks like. And I know when someone is wasting my time." She nodded toward the door. "I suggest you leave before this becomes more uncomfortable." Behind them, whispers had started. A man in a tailored suit glanced over his newspaper. A woman near the ATM watched with thinly veiled curiosity. Lily shifted from one foot to the other, sensing tension she couldn't name. Ethan straightened slightly. Not out of anger, but out of resolve. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor," he said. The manager let out a short laugh, the kind that carried no humor. "My supervisor will tell you the same thing," she replied. "But if it helps you accept reality, go ahead." She tapped something on her desk, clearly irritated, then turned her attention to another screen as if Ethan and Lily were already gone. The dismissal was complete. While they waited, Ethan's mind drifted, not to the check, but to the path that had brought him here. Years ago, he had stood in a very different office, holding Lily as a newborn while signing hospital forms alone. Her mother had passed away hours after delivery, and the world he thought he knew had collapsed into a single responsibility. Every decision since then had been shaped by that moment. He learned to be invisible when needed, to blend in, to avoid attention. Wealth, when it finally came, was never about showing it. It was about security. About never having to tell Lily. We can't afford that. Again. The regional director's office door remained closed. Time stretched. The manager continued typing, occasionally glancing at the clock, her lips pressed into a thin line. To her, this was already over. The check was trash. The man was a nuisance. The child was collateral inconvenience. Ethan crouched slightly to Lily's level. You okay? He asked. She nodded, then frowned. Why did she break the paper? He paused, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes people make decisions without asking enough questions, he said. But that's not our fault. Lily considered this, then leaned into him. Her trust was absolute, and it grounded him more than anything else in the room. At last, footsteps approached. The office door opened, and a man in a dark suit stepped out, scanning the lobby with practiced authority. The manager straightened immediately, her posture shifting from casual control to eager professionalism. Mr. Reynolds, she said quickly, standing. I was just handling a situation. The man's eyes moved past her, landing on Ethan and Lily. His expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. A flicker of recognition. A pause that lasted a fraction of a second longer than necessary. He took another step forward, his gaze sharpening as he looked more closely at Ethan's face. Ethan stood, meeting his eyes calmly. The manager continued speaking, unaware of the shift. This gentleman attempted to cash an obviously fraudulent check. I disposed of it to prevent any issues. Mr. Reynolds didn't respond right away. His attention was fixed on Ethan now, as if the rest of the room had faded. The noise of the bank seemed distant, muffled. Ethan held out the torn pieces of the check, not defensively, not aggressively, just honestly. I asked for verification, he said. That's all. Silence settled again, heavier than before. Lily squeezed his hand. And in that silence, the balance of the room began to tilt, though no one except the man in the dark suit seemed to realize it yet.